And we're live. Welcome, friends. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Sinister Sundays, where we explore the mysterious, the unknown, and the unexplained. Tonight, we shall be investigating Delphine LaLaurie from New Orleans, who lived in the 18th century. She died in 1849. Killed a bunch of people, a bunch of slaves, and her house is infamous as one of the most haunted places in New Orleans. Odog is here. Greetings, Odog. I've missed you, friend. I hope you're feeling well. Momo said, hello, superantonio. I joined your Discord. I appreciate you doing that, Momo, but the Discord is kind of dying, if not dead. It never really took off. And it's kind of Lord of the Flies in there. I don't think it's moderated at all these days. But, if you find any use there, have fun. Eagles Pro says, hi, greetings, Eagles. David is here. Greetings, David. Welcome, friend. Also, Rain Johnston says, hi, greetings, Rain. Miko says, hello, Super Antonio. And Sadie, hello, mods. Howdy, folks. Yet another new week again. Yes, it's a new week, Miko, and new opportunities abound. So this is the week. This is the week where everything changes, where you conquer, where you take over, where all your dreams and goals start to manifest. It's going to happen, Miko, starting tomorrow. David, I'm so glad you're here early because I have your photos. I've got a slideshow, a random slideshow that I'm going to play as we talk about Madame LaLaurie. And if we have time, I shall also get into the ghost sightings. Odog says, the pup is on call. Greetings, Odog. Appreciate you being here, friend. I hope you're feeling better. So we will go into the history of Delphine LaLaurie. I will read the Wikipedia page, and then, if we have enough time, and we will, I will go into the ghost sightings. These are David's photos from his recent trip to Saint Denis of the infamous LaLaurie house, LaLaurie mansion. David says they don't let you get close anymore. It's very spooky and haunted anyways. I knew about this house because Nicolas Cage bought it, I believe, in the 90s. So that's how I learned about this house. And it just stayed in the back of my head, in my memory, until American Horror Story showcased the character in Coven, which is set in New Orleans, ironically enough. And she was portrayed by Oscar winner Kathy Bates, who you may know as the Oscar winner from Misery. I do have to diminish the slideshow, because I just grabbed all these images off the internet, and so I'm not, we're playing fast and loose with copyright licensing issues, and I think if the image is like 50%, there's a percentage smaller than the video, then it falls under fair use. So I've got like random photos from American Horror Story and the LaLaurie mansion that we will showcase. And Sadie's up. She's always interested in a ghost story. Cloudy says, howdy, y'all. Greetings, Cloudy. Happy Sunday. On Sundays, we sinister. Okay. And here is the Wikipedia article on Delphine LaLaurie. Marie Delphine McCarthy, born March 19th, 1787, and died December 7th, 1849. More commonly known as Madame Blanc, that's Madame White, Mrs. White, or after her third marriage as Madame LaLaurie, was a New Orleans socialite and serial killer who is believed to have tortured and murdered slaves in her household. Born during the Spanish colonial period, LaLaurie married 3 times in Louisiana and was twice widowed. She maintained her position in New Orleans society until April 10th, 1834, when rescuers responded to a fire at her Royal Street mansion. There, they discovered bound slaves in her attic who showed evidence of cruel and violent abuse over a long period. LaLaurie's house was subsequently sacked by an outraged mob of New Orleans citizens. She escaped to France with her family. The mansion, traditionally held to be LaLaurie's, is a landmark in the French Quarter, in part because of its history and for its architectural significance. However, her house was burned by the mob, and the LaLaurie mansion at 1140 Royal Street was in fact rebuilt after her departure from New Orleans. Early life and family history. Marie Delphine McCarty was born in New Orleans, Spanish Louisiana, on March 19, 1787, one of 5 children. Her father was Louis Barthélemy de McCarty, originally Chevalier de McCarthy, whose father, Barthélemy de McCarthy, moved the family to New Orleans from Ireland around 1730 during the French colonial period. The Irish surname McCarthy was shortened to McCarty or de McCarty. Her mother was Marie-Jeanne L'Érable, also known as the Widow Lecomte, as her marriage to Louis B. McCarty was her second. Both of Delphine's parents were prominent in the city's European Creole community. Her uncle by marriage, Esteban Rodriguez Miro, was the governor of the Spanish-American provinces of Louisiana and Florida, and her cousin, Augustin de McCarty, was mayor of New Orleans from 1815 to 1820. Delphine was only 4 years old when the Haitian Revolution erupted in 1791, something that made slaveholders in the southern United States and the Caribbean very afraid of resistance and rebellion amongst the slaves. Delphine's uncle had been killed in 1771 by slaves, and the revolution had inspired the local Mina conspiracy in 1791, and the Pointe Coupé conspiracy in 1794, and also the 1811 German Coast Uprising, all of which caused many slaveholders to abuse slaves even more harshly out of fear of insurrection. Her first marriage. On June 11, 1800, at age 13, Delphine married Don Ramon de Lopez y Angulo, a Caballero de Real de Carlos, a high-ranking Spanish royal officer at the San Luis Cathedral in New Orleans. Louisiana, as it was spelled in Spanish, had become a Spanish colony in the 1760s after France was defeated in the 7 Years' War. In 1804, after the American acquisition of what was then again a French territory, Don Ramon had been appointed to the position of Consul General for Spain in the territory of Orleans, and was called to appear at the royal court in Madrid. While en route with Delphine, who was then pregnant, Don Ramon suddenly died in Havana. A few days later, after his death, Delphine gave birth to his daughter, Maria Borgia Delphine Lopez y Anguilo de la Candelaria, nicknamed Borquita. The widowed Delphine and her child returned to New Orleans. Second marriage and death of husband. In June 1808, aged around 21, Delphine married Jean Blanc, a prominent banker, merchant, lawyer, and legislator. At the time of her marriage, Blanc purchased a house at 409 Royal Street for the family, which became known as the Villa Blanc. Delphine had 4 children by Blanc, named Marie-Louise Pauline, Louise Marie-Laure, Marie-Louise Jeanne, and Jean-Pierre Paulin Blanc. The elder Jean Blanc died in 1816. And the third marriage. On June 25, 1825, Delphine married her third husband, physician Leonard Louis Nicolas LaLaurie, who was 15 years her junior. In 1831, she bought property at 1140 Royal Street, which she managed in her own name with little involvement from her husband. In 1832, she had a two-story mansion built there, complete with attached slave quarters. She lived at the residence with her third husband and two of her daughters and maintained a central position in New Orleans society. Gotta drink a little green tea. Here are your pictures again, David. Sinister Sundays is thirsty work. What's that about? 10 viewers in the chat. Welcome, friends. We're getting to the good part. No worries. Thank you for your patience. The marriage soon showed signs of strain, however, and on November 16, 1832, Delphine petitioned the First Judicial District Court for a separation from bed and board of her husband, in which Delphine claimed that LaLaurie had treated her in such a manner as to render their living together unsupportable, claims which her son and two of her daughters by Jean Blanc confirmed. The separation does not seem to have been permanent, as Dr. LaLaurie was present at the Royal Street House April 10, 1834, the day of the fire. Torture and murder of slaves in 1834, and the LaLaurie Mansion fire. Accounts of Delphine's treatments of her slaves between 1831 and 1834 vary. Harriet Martineau, writing in 1838, recounting tales told to her by New Orleans residents during her 1836 visit, claimed that slaves of LaLaurie were observed to be singularly haggard and wretched when compared to other enslaved individuals. However, at least in public appearances, LaLaurie was seen to be generally polite to black people and solicitous to the health of those enslaved. Funeral registers between 1830 and 1834 document the deaths of 12 slaves at the Royal Street Mansion. Although the causes of said deaths are not mentioned, infectious diseases could have easily been the cause. These deaths include a woman named Bonnie, a cook and laundress, and her 4 children, Juliet, Florence, Jules, and the youngest, Leontine. Leontine's a nice name. It means lion. It's like Lionel, but French. Bonnie had been previously enslaved by a refugee from San Domingue and was described during her sale as a, quote, chronic runaway with an influx of white and free Saint Dominican refugees of color and those whom they had enslaved. The fear of slaves from San Domingue still lingered in Louisiana. San Domingue must be San Dominica, the San Dominican Republic. Court records at the time show that LaLaurie freed 2 slaves, Jean-Louis in 1819 and Devance in 1832. Martineau wrote that public rumors about her mistreatment of slaves at the Royal Street residence were sufficiently widespread. 12 viewers in the chat, I see you. And Madame LaLaurie sees you as well. And also Sadie, who says hi. Martineau wrote that her public rumors about her mistreatment of slaves at the Royal Street residence were sufficiently widespread, so much so that a local lawyer was dispatched to the property to remind LaLaurie of the laws for the upkeep of slaves. During this visit, the lawyer found no evidence to suggest wrongdoing or mistreatment of slaves by LaLaurie. Martineau also recounted other tales of LaLaurie's cruelty that were whispered amongst New Orleans residents around 1836, saying that, subsequent to the visit of the lawyer, one of LaLaurie's neighbors saw an 8-year-old slave girl fall to her death from the roof of the mansion while trying to avoid punishment from a whip-wielding LaLaurie. The girl's body was subsequently buried on the mansion grounds. Jeanne de la Vigne, in her 1945 account, gave the child's age as 12 and named her as Leah. Later writers elaborated on the case, saying that Leah had been brushing Delphine's hair when she hit a snag, causing LaLaurie to grab a whip in anger and chase her. Well, why did she snag her hair? It seems like she was just trying to get Leah to do a better job. She was actually helping her. I'm being very sarcastic. Oh my God. Don't take that out of context. According to Martineau, this incident led to an investigation of the LaLauries, in which they were found guilty of illegal cruelty and forced to forfeit 9 slaves of the household. Those 9 enslaved people were brought back to the LaLauries through an intermediary relative and thus returned to the mansion. Similarly, Martineau recounted that stories that LaLaurie kept her cook starved and chained to the kitchen stove, beating her daughters when they attempted to feed themselves or others. As reported in the New Orleans Bee of April 11th, 1834, bystanders, on April 10th, 1834, a fire broke out at the Royal Street Mansion, beginning in the kitchen. When police and fire marshals reached the residence, they found a 70-year-old cook chained to the stove by her ankle. The cook later said that she had set the fire as a self-cancellation attempt. Got to be careful for the algorithm, which is always listening. Because she feared being punished, stating that slaves taken to the uppermost room never came back. What's that about? As reported in the New Orleans Bee of April 11th, 1834, bystanders responding to the fire attempted to enter the quarters of those enslaved to ensure that everyone had been evacuated. Upon being refused the keys by the LaLauries, the bystanders broke down the doors to the quarters and found 7 slaves, more or less horribly mutilated, suspended by the neck, with their limbs apparently stretched and torn from one extremity to the other, who claimed to have been imprisoned there for some months. One of those who entered the premises was Judge Jean-Francois Canonege, who subsequently deposed to having found in the LaLaurie mansion, among others, a black lady wearing an iron collar, says another word that I don't think we're allowed to say anymore, and an old black woman who had received a very deep wound on her head and was too weak to be able to walk. Canonege said that when he questioned LaLaurie's husband about those enslaved on the property, he was told in an insolent manner that some people had better stay at home rather than come to the others' houses to dictate laws and meddle with other people's business. I mean, he has a point. Is it really your business? This is your property. I'm being sarcastic again and trying to be humorous, and I apologize. A version of this story circulating in 1836 and recounted by Martineau added that the slaves were emaciated, showing signs of being flayed with a whip, were bound in restrictive postures, and wore spiked iron collars, which kept their heads in static positions. When the discovery of the abused slaves became widely known, a mob of local citizens attacked the Royal Street Mansion and demolished and destroyed everything upon which they could lay their hands. So the good citizens of Saint Denis were outraged. A sheriff and his officers were called to disperse the crowd, but by the time the mob left, the property had sustained major damage, with scarcely anything remaining but the walls. The slaves were taken to a local jail where they were available for public viewing. Wow. Okay. I guess, well, there was no TV in 1834. The Bee reported that by April 12th, up to 4,000 people had attended to view the slaves to convince themselves of their sufferings. The Pittsfield Sun, citing the New Orleans Advisor and writing several weeks after the evacuation of LaLaurie's quarters, claimed that 2 of the slaves found in the mansion had died following the rescue. It added, "We understand that in digging the yard, bodies have been disinterred, and the condemned well in the grounds of the mansion has been uncovered. Others, particularly that of a child, were found." These claims were repeated by Martineau in her 1838 book, Retrospect of Western Travel, where she placed the number of unearthed bodies at 2, including the aforementioned child, Leah. Escape from justice and self-imposed exile in France. LaLaurie's life after 1834 is not well documented. Martineau wrote in 1838 that she fled New Orleans during the mob violence that followed the fire, taking a coach to the waterfront and traveling by schooner to Mobile, Alabama, and then to Paris. By the time Martineau personally visited the Royal Street Mansion in 1836, it was still unoccupied and badly damaged, with, quote, gaping windows and empty walls. Later life and death. While Delphine was living in exile in Paris with her mother and two sisters, Pauline and Laure, her son Paulin Blanc wrote in August 15, 1842, to his brother-in-law, Auguste de Lassus, stating that Delphine was serious about her return to New Orleans and had thought about doing so for a long time. He wrote in the same letter that he believed that his mother never had any idea about the reason for her departure from the city. Despite Delphine's bad mood and her determination to return, the disapproval of her children and the other relatives had apparently been enough for her to cancel her plans. The circumstances of LaLaurie's death are also unclear. In 1888, George Washington Cable recounted a popular but unsubstantiated story that LaLaurie had died in France in a boar hunting accident. In the late 1930s, Eugene Backy, who had served as a sexton to San Luis Cemetery No. 1 until 1924, discovered an old, cracked copper plate in Alley 4 of the cemetery. The inscription on the plate read, Madame LaLaurie, née Marie Delphine McCarty, décédée à Paris, died le 7 December 18... Okay, let's say it en français. Le 7 décembre 1842, à l'âge de 6... It just says 6 dash. 6 dash. The English translation of the inscription reads, Madame LaLaurie, born Marie Delphine McCarthy, died in Paris, December 7th, 1842, at the age of 60-something. According to the French archives of Paris, however, LaLaurie died on December 7th, 1849, at the age of 62. Moving on to the LaLaurie Mansion. The original Royal Street Mansion occupied by LaLaurie did not survive. The mansion, located on the corner of Governor Nichols Street, formerly known as Hospital Street, commonly referred to as the LaLaurie House or the Haunted House, is not the same building inhabited by LaLaurie. When she acquired the property in 1831 from Edmond Sonia du Fossat, a house was already under construction and finished for LaLaurie. This house was burned by the mob in 1834 and remained in a ruined state for at least another 4 years. It was then rebuilt by Pierre Trasteur after 1838 and assumed the appearance that it has today. Over the following decades, it has been used as a public high school, a conservatory of music, an apartment building, a refuge for young delinquents, a bar, a furniture store, and a luxury apartment building. The dwelling had a third floor and rear building added in the late 19th century, and the rear building on Governor Nichols Street, which had only one floor until a second one was added in the 20th century, was remodeled in the 1970s, when the second floor interior of the building was done over by Koch and Wilson architects. At 3 stories high, it was described in 1928 as the highest building for squares around, with the result that from the cupola of the building, one may look out on the Vieux Carré and see the Mississippi in its crescent before Jackson Square. The entrance to the building bears iron grillwork, and the door is carved with an image of Phoebus in his chariot. Phoebus is another word for Apollo, and another name for Apollo, and with wreaths of flowers and descending garlands in bas-relief. So it's carved into the doorway. Inside, the vestibule is floored in black and white marble, and a curved mahogany-railed staircase runs the full 3 stories of the building. The second floor holds 3 large drawing rooms connected by ornamental sliding doors, whose walls were decorated with plaster rosettes, carved woodwork, black marble mantelpieces, and fluted pilasters. A pilaster is both a load-bearing section of thickened wall or column integrated into a wall, and a purely decorative element in classical architecture, which gives the appearance of a supporting column. and it articulates an extent of the wall. They have pilasters in the mayor's mansion in Red Dead Redemption 2. In April 2007, actor Nicolas Cage bought the house for a sum of $3.45 million. That's cheap. That's like almost affordable. To protect the actor's privacy, the mortgage documents were arranged in such a way that Cage's name didn't appear on them. On November 13th, 2009, the property, then valued at $3.5 million, was listed for auction as the result of a foreclosure and purchased by Regions Financial Corporation for $2.3 million. The property last changed hands in 2010 when it was purchased by current owner Michael Whalen for $2.1 million. LaLaurie in Folklore. Folk histories of LaLaurie's abuse and murder of those enslaved on the property circulated in Louisiana during the 19th century and were reprinted in collections of stories by Henry Castellanos and George Washington Cable. Mama One and Papa One are here. Greetings, Mama One. Welcome to Sinister Sundays. Everyone say hi to Mama One and Papa One. Cable's account, not to be confused with this unrelated 1881 novel Madame Delphine, was based on contemporary reports in newspapers such as The Bee and The Advertiser, and upon Martineau's 1830 account, Retrospect of Western Travel. He added some of his own synthesis, dialogue, and speculation. After 1945, accounts of those enslaved by the LaLauries became more explicit. Jean de Lavigne, writing in Ghost Stories of the Old New Orleans, alleged that LaLaurie had a sadistic appetite that seemed never appeased until she had inflicted on one or more of her black servitors some hideous form of torture. Let's see. Moving on, in popular culture, Kathy Bates portrayed a heavily fictionalized version of the character in the third season of the anthology television series American Horror Story and earned a Primetime Emmy Award. Wow, she got an Emmy for that. Well, she's really good. She's a good actress. And that's not my favorite American Horror Story season. There's a lot of teen drama in it. What's that about? But it's Jessica Lange. I love Jessica Lange. Angela Bassett as Marie Laveau, who we will explore in another Sinister Sunday at some point. Serena's here. Serena says, hi, Antonio, I'm here. Serena, I missed you. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're feeling better. Everybody say hi to Serena. Serena, Odog's here as well. Odog wasn't feeling well. He might have caught what you have when you guys were hanging out online. What's that about? Yeah, but it's set in New Orleans and it's kind of cool. It's about witches. It has a really good theme song. It's well, you know, like they've got the American Horror theme song, but you know, the witches have like this theme song it's got like this spooky like voodoo drumming, and then you know this chorus is like very haunting. I love it. Let's see. Okay, moving on to the good parts, the hauntings. And this is from a website called Ghost City Tours in New Orleans. So I have to tell you, you know, this website is incentivized to, I mean, they give tours of the haunts in New Orleans. So they want you to be titillated and scared. Secondhand accounts for me are very subjective. That being said, I do believe New Orleans is one of the most haunted cities in America. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life, but the one time where I can actually say that's a ghost was in New Orleans, and I'll tell you about it at some point. So reading this website. The haunted LaLaurie Mansion, 1140 Royal Street, New Orleans. Is this the house where slaves were tortured at the hands of Delphine LaLaurie? And the article says, if you've read anything about the ghosts and hauntings in New Orleans, there's no doubt you've heard about the LaLaurie Mansion. It is one of the most popular stops on our New Orleans ghost tours. Sometimes people in the city won't even call it that, choosing to refer to the 1140 Royal Street as the haunted house instead. The fact is, in New Orleans, the two are the same. Shows like American Horror Story have made an already infamous location that much more notorious. Spoiler, be warned that producers took great creative liberties, as Hollywood tends to do. The majority of filming happened at the Herman Grima House on St. Louis Street, probably for the best, honestly, as people claim that the LaLaurie Mansion is cursed. And let's see, the LaLaurie Mansion was home to Delphine LaLaurie. Her story is one of the most popular ghost stories on the ghost tour of New Orleans. The LaLaurie Mansion and Delphine LaLaurie played a big part in American Horror Story franchise. Nicolas Cage owned this house. Yes, I covered that. And the LaLaurie Mansion is widely considered one of the most haunted houses in New Orleans' French Quarter. Many believe the ghosts of former slaves are causing most of the hauntings. The ghosts of the haunted LaLaurie Mansion. For almost 200 years, there have been reports of paranormal activity coming from this house. It shouldn't surprise many that the hauntings are attributed to the slaves that Madame LaLaurie kept on her property. There is a room in the LaLaurie Mansion where slaves were often kept, and reports of moaning coming from that room are common. Phantom footprints echo through the house with regularity. Many people who have stood near the house have reported feeling as if they were taken over by negative energy. What about you, David? Did you or your lovely wife, who is a witch, experience any feelings of dread or heaviness or negativity? Papa One says, Cafe Du Monde, New Orleans coffee is to die for. I fell in love with it. Yes, that chicory, it's very distinctive. It's not French. It's not Starbucks. It's Creole. And their beignets. David, wouldn't you say that a beignet is just a French churro? I've had both beignets and churros. I think I would prefer a beignet just because it's more traditional, I think. Churros are a little heavy, and I don't love cinnamon. Anyways, a dark entity within. Let's continue. Let's move on. Despite all of the ghost stories and paranormal happenings at the LaLaurie house, it would be folly to assume that all of them can be traced back to Madame LaLaurie and her mistreatment of slaves. In 1894, a tenant who lived at the LaLaurie Mansion, the house was converted into apartments, was brutally murdered in his room. They found his belongings ransacked as if someone had gone through them. The police assumed he was a victim of a robbery, even though nothing of value was found missing. An interesting account regarding his murder deals with the police interviewing neighbors about his disappearance. One of the friends claimed that he was having problems with spirits in his house. His friend wrote it off as his imagination running wild. But he did say something interesting. He claimed that his friend told him that there was a demon in the house who wasn't going to rest until he had met his end, which the man did in this house. It is possible that at least some of the ghostly phenomena can be a result of this brutal murder. It certainly is possible. However, nobody will know for sure until a real paranormal investigation team, bunch of quacks those guys are, can investigate this location. There's no such thing as a real paranormal investigation team. I'm sorry. Only then, by communicating with the dead who still reside here, can we hope to get to the bottom about the truth of the ghosts at LaLaurie Mansion. I truly believe, in like sensitivity. I've known many people, women who are psychic, who I would say are full on psychic. But um, I have trouble. I'm always skeptical. I always have trouble believing it, even though I have personal experience. Excuse me, friends. During these schoolgirl years, the LaLaurie mansion was for a very brief time also a school for all girls during the mid to late 19th century. At first, it had been one of the few mixed schools in the city of New Orleans, but politics during the Reconstruction era were convoluted, and surely enough, soon after the school at 1140 Royal Street was converted to a strictly all-girls African American primary school. Within a short time, within a short amount of time, reports of physical assaults came to light. We know that young girls would approach their teachers, tears streaked down their faces, with their sleeves rolled up, the exposed flesh of their forearms scratched and bruised. Who did this to you? The teachers would demand. The answer was always one and the same: that woman. But these girls were young enough to be probably not aware of Madame Delphine and the devastating tragedy some decades earlier. Moreover, it was unlikely that the teachers themselves would tell 6, 7, and 8-year-olds about the starvation and immoral torture of the slaves some decades before. One must wonder if the young girls were playing pranks on each other. That's what I wonder. Or if their claims that some phantom woman had scarred them was true. No memoirs exist from this period, just a scattering of accounts here and there. Was the spirit of Madame Delphine LaLaurie responsible for these scratches, or was it something else entirely instead? This article is one big ad for Ghost City tours of New Orleans, but that's okay. It's very entertaining to read. A medium to read the house. Okay, we have a medium, not a large, not a small. Although not everyone believes in psychics or mediums, there was one particular instance made known to the Ghost City Tours team in which someone on one of our ghost tours happened to be a medium. They happened to say they were a medium. It's not like you're professionally credentialed by the University of Medium Schools, or licensed by the state. I happen to be a kung fu master. But within the first sight of LaLaurie Mansion, the medium sucked in a deep breath. Such sadness, she whispered as she rocked back and forth on her heels. Pulling out her phone, she proceeded to snap a picture of the mansion. The bricked up window, she went on. That's not where the little girl fell out of. The tour guide paused, simply because she hadn't gotten to the part of the story about the little girl at all. Nevertheless, she recovered quickly and said, "No, you're right. The story goes that Leia fell into the courtyard. As for the bricked-up window, I suspect that someone did some interior decorating, but wanted to maintain the symmetry on the outside of the home." In the next few minutes, the medium experienced such a heavy emotion, like the weight had settled down upon her shoulders. She sensed the spirit of a young boy. Okay, so imagine this. You're in a tour group of, like, let's say 20 people, and you are a medium, and you are, what better advertisement for your business as a medium as to be in a tour group of like-minded individuals who already believe in this stuff, who will come up to you after the tour and say, "Hey, I couldn't help noticing how disturbed you were. Do you have a card?" "Yes, I do. It's only $45 an hour. And I sense a lot of tension and unanswered questions that you have." So one, I'm not liking this scenario, but I find it very, it's entertaining. But I'm very cynical, I'm very skeptical, and I apologize. But if I were a medium, I would do all these ghost tours and be like, I'm sensing something. And the tour guides would know me and say, Super Antonio, stop poaching our clients. Or maybe they wouldn't mind if I gave them a kickback. A finder's fee. Yeah, that's how I'd work it. In the next few minutes, the medium experienced such heavy emotion like the weight had settled down on her shoulders. She sensed the spirit of a young boy who liked to play pranks on the living and the spirit of a little girl who was often nervous. Did she feel any helplessness or anger? The tour guide asked. Now, I think the tour guide's in on this. No, was the response. Whatever happened then with LaLaurie does not visit the house any longer. Is this true? Have all the spirits of the slaves who were once nearly starved to death in the house moved on? Let's move on. And if that is the case, who is responsible for all of the reported hauntings at 1140 Royal Street? Ghostly happenings to a guide. One of our guides was lucky enough to experience something at the haunted house on Royal Street. Lucky, of course, is a term used loosely here. On one occurrence, our guide was giving a ghost tour. They were at the LaLaurie mansion, standing just directly across from the front door. To the right, another group was discussing the tragedies of the LaLauries some 50 feet away. But there, under the quiet moonlight, the story of 1834 was slowly unveiled. All of a sudden, our guide felt a tug on her messenger bag draped over her shoulder. She stopped amid her story and twisted to look over her shoulder, convinced she might find a pickpocket or someone intent on stealing her things. Right in the middle of a tour, she exclaimed as she regaled us with the story. No one was there, however, so she turned back around and got back into character. No less than 10 seconds later, she felt the tug again, harder this time, a sharp yank. Once again, she whipped around, but no one was there. This time, she told her tour what had happened, and their faces, she said, were priceless. No doubt hers was too. 2 weeks later, at the corner of Governor Nichols and Royal Street, our guide, same girl, was out in the streets again, bringing another tour around. The LaLaurie mansion, of course, was the main hit. She had positioned her group under a set of street lamps, burnt out for a few weeks. She launched into the story, but the minute she said the name Leia, the lamps flickered on. Everyone in the group paused, a few yelping in delight. The guide went on with the show. When she said the name Leia again, those lamps blew out. The light was gone. Was the ghost of Leia still there, still waiting, wanting to be spoken to be mentioned? Was the playing with the lights just a method of exposing her presence to the living? And the Ghost of New Orleans tour is nightly at 8 p.m. Let's see how much it is. How much are they charging for that? 7 nights a week. They're not listing prices. Let's say we go on July 4th at 8 p.m. How many? It's $24.99. 11 viewers in the chat. Okay, I'm going to add 11 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, 12 counting me. Okay, 12. What's 12 times 25? They'd be so happy. 12 times 25. Okay, $300. And we can go on this tour. At any rate, yeah, I have to move this light. Serena Sadie's here, and Mama One Sadie's here. She got scared by all the ghost stories, so she left. But she's back now. How is everyone? Did you enjoy our recounting of the legend of Delphine LaLaurie? And, I told you, I felt a hand on my shoulder here in this apartment after one of the streams. And it felt like my dad. It was a weird feeling. But, so I've had experiences But I'm still a doubter. I'm still very skeptic. Hey, stay. Stay, please. Stay and say hi to Sadie and Papa One and Serena. Serena says, hi, Sadie, beautiful girl. Sadie thinks you're a beautiful girl. Papa One says, at Arlington Cemetery, I seen a young man looking at a grave, but he was dressed in a World War I Army uniform. And Mom One says, hi, Sadie. Mom One, what's for dinner? And David, what's for dinner? You're going head to head against our current champion. Let's see who wins. How's everyone? How's your Sunday? When your pictures come around, I'll go full screen again, David, and we can look at them. There's no way to really pause the video once it starts, regrettably. American Horror Story. What's Jessica Lange doing these days? I think she's retired. I don't know why she left. Okay, here are your pictures, David. Yes, David, did you feel any heaviness or scariness? Anything strange happen when you saw these? When you took these photos? That's a good one. I like this angle here. I should have used that in thumbnail. For a brief moment, this picture was the thumbnail before I added, Kathy Bates and everyone. And Papa One says, the only ghost who ever spoke to me was my friend Fox. He was one of my best friends, a crazy man to have in the field, but he loved his friends. He came to my hospital room and asked how I felt. Yeah, that's an amazing story. But it's the bond you had as brothers, you shared as brothers, I'm sure. In battle, it creates a bond that extends beyond conventional boundaries, I think. Yeah, I've had lots of experiences. I would say that, I think pretty much every girlfriend I've ever had has been psychic to on some level. Very sensitive. It's been around me all my life. In some ways, I think I attract it or I'm open to it, but I'm always skeptical. I'm always intellectual. When something odd or strange happens, I immediately rationalize it. Except for the one time that it happened in New Orleans, that where I was like, "That's a ghost," and it was like a Scooby-Doo episode. I was like running and not moving in the air, and I got out of there as fast as I could. But I'll tell you about it at some point, but not tonight. I'm saving it, perhaps for a Halloween episode. Another character that I love more than Delphine LaLaurie is Marie Laveau, who is the voodoo queen of New Orleans. And we shall explore her at some point, either on Wednesday or Sunday. I'm not sure. We might do the Amityville Horror on Wednesday, Serena, for you. Might do a little investigation of that because the movie ones do well. Let's see. Scrolling through the chat, David and Mama One did not mention their dinners. I had pizza salad, one of my favorite salads. There's Nicolas Cage in the entire history of salads. It's very good, very refreshing, kind of light. Mama once says, excuse me. Mama once says, tonight we had a wonderful ham with white rice. I used brown sugar and basil in my ham. I also made sweet potatoes, green beans, and turnip greens. And I'm sure you also had a dessert in there as well. For dessert, we had some fresh baked peanut butter cookies. Oh, that sounds delicious. There's nothing about that I wouldn't eat. But I don't think you've ever cooked anything that I wouldn't eat. Eagles had spaghetti. I do like spaghetti. I haven't had spaghetti in a long time because it's garlic. And dogs can't eat garlic. There's the fire. Ten viewers in the chat. Welcome, friends. Appreciate you being here. I hope you're enjoying our Sinister Sundays. On Sundays, we sinister. Mama once says, tomorrow is going to be a special meal. I'm already slow roasting it now. And David had a Caesar bow tie salad. That sounds good, David. I love Caesar salad. And Caesar salad sandwiches. Well, you take a Caesar salad and then you add some chicken to it. And you just put it in a sandwich situation. Lance Reddick, he passed away. He was the concierge at the Continental. And he was in a bunch of movies. I first noticed him in Spartacus. I don't know if you've seen that. I'm sure Hortus has. But I think he died this year. Cloudy made homemade chicken and cheese burritos. And had you on my TV in the background. That is exactly how I want you to consume my videos, Cloudy. Just have me on the background while you go about your day. Just letting me keep you company. And then checking in on the camera, on the screen every now and then to see what we're up to. Mama once says, I'm making 2 of this meal, one for me and Papa one, and the other one is for our farm dogs. Yeah. Sadie pretty much, she gets her meals, but then she'll also get to sample whatever I'm eating as well. Not that I'm allowed to sample what she's eating. What's that about? I suppose I would be able to if I insisted, but she really enjoys her meals. Eagles, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. I hope you feel better. Drink lots of water. Take it easy. And then tomorrow is Marston Mondays, and I have no idea what we're doing. It's like I'm doing it on the fly right now. And for Sinister Sundays, we're going to explore the Chupacabra, Hannibal Lecter, the Bog People, Salem Witch Trial, Elizabeth Bathory, the Perron Farm haunt. That's from Mama One. Mama once says, farm dogs eat only table scraps unless we leave them. I make them meals in advance for our ranch hands to feed them. Papa once says, do a Marston Monday dedicated to the Dark Bay Turkman. Well, that would work better as a Saturday horse show, Papa One, but we can. I need an idea for Dark Bay Turk would be a good horse show. I'm going to make a note of it. We may have done one before, but we'll do it again. Dark Bay Turk Sat. Make a note of that, Morgan. On Mondays, we Marston. Papa One says, I really love that Dark Bay Turkoman. My wife has been playing the game the last few hours, only riding that horse. That Dark Bay Turkoman was quite good to the channel back in the day. Serena, are you still here? How are you feeling, my dear? I hope you're feeling better. I missed you. And Odog, are you lurking or are you still around? Mama One says, do you use mods? Well, you mean in the game? Yes and no. I use Save Wizard so we can get Boadicea and we can get online horses. But not, I would say not really, because I'm not a PC player. So I don't know the first thing about mods. Really, I just know how to get horses. But if you're talking about the live streams, Mama One, you're a mod. What's that about? I saw someone in the chat mentioned Savannah, which is another haunted city, and that would make a good Sinister Sunday. Haunted Savannah. I like the idea of just doing exclusively American paranormal stuff. I mean, I enjoyed the Tunguska event, which did okay, but I like the idea from this moment forward, focusing on American and perhaps Canadian paranormal events and Mexico. So all of North and South America, and just leaving the Europeans and all their nonsense to their nonsense, because we've got enough over on this side of the world to explore. And I would enjoy focusing on that. I think it would be good thematically. Cloudy says, Super Antonio, you are missing out on the bowl cut mod for Arthur on PC. We can make Arthur look like Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder. Serena says, nothing to do now. I just drive around. I don't know how to use mods. Don't worry about it, Serena. You can have a lot of fun just driving around. I know you can. David says, use it as practice, Star Hearts. I'm glad Odog was back for a bit. I missed you, friend. I got to talk to you about Abigail. Don't tell Abigail. Ten viewers in the chat. Welcome, friends. Happy Sunday. I hope you enjoyed this Sunday's Sinister Sunday. On Sundays, we sinister. Papa One says, my dad hated Savannah, Georgia. He said the worst place was to be hell, or New York City. He hated New York City was a passion. He said instead of riding horses, you can ride rats in NYC. Yeah, I just saw a viral video of like a rat that is as big as a small cat, just boldly, in one of those bodegas, just walking around. Hello, I'm a rat. I live here. Serena says, LOL, David, I'm getting better at driving. Ha ha. At any rate, that's about all I have for you tonight, friends. Shout out to the mods, David and Star Hearts, and Mama One and Papa One, and especially Odog. Odog and Serena, I hope you are feeling better. We shall return on Monday for Marston Mondays, and we'll do another of these Sinister Sunday streams on Wednesday for Weirdling Wednesdays. I, as always, appreciate you being here. Your time is arguably the most valuable commodity that you have. And I'm honored and humbled that you would spend some of it with me and Sadie. Where's Sadie? Let's bring her back to say goodbye. Let's make that a thing. Rain Johnson says good night. Hup, hup. Okay, say goodbye to the chat. Say goodbye, chat. Can you say goodbye, chat, please? Say goodbye to Serena and David and Papa One and Mama One. Appreciate all of you, friends. Have a great week. This is your week. Everything's going to happen. Make it happen.